Welcome, and of course we'll start with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
You saw me adjusting my head fill-in. I have some pictures of earlier on when I had a lot more hair on my face and my head, and the fill-in are so cattywampus, it's not even funny. So at any rate, or at least it's hilarious, it's not funny. And of course, there's nothing I can do at this point because they're recordings. So I'm going to go ahead and get into our text here. Oh gosh, well, all right, here we go. So this is where we left off yesterday. So this is the gathering of the raw materials, right? And I've been trying to keep a count of the number of times we go through these iterations, right? So the instruction came ahead of that. V'asa B'tzalel v'Oholiav v'chol ish chacham lev. So B'tzalel, Oholiav, and every wise-hearted man made Asher Natan Hashem Chochmah. I'm sorry, it continues, the parenthetical phrase, which the Lord had given wisdom, utvuna, and understanding, bahema, among them. All right, so it's interesting that it's singular, right? Rashi's not going to comment on that, but it's just interesting. And I think that the reason why it's a singular, it's third person singular, and yet we're talking about Betzalel or Oholiav, every wise-hearted man, etc., okay, is singular to indicate how they were unified, how they were a team. So the team did it, singular, right? Ladat, so this is again this parenthetical phrase, which the Lord had given wisdom and understanding among them, ladat, to know, la'asot, how to fabricate, et kol melechet avodat hakodesh, all the service of the holy work, in other words, the task of the holy work. Incidentally, of course, an angel is called a malach. So essentially, a servant, a messenger, etc. But it has to do with performing a task on behalf of someone else, right? L'chol asher tzivah Hashem, regarding all which the Lord had commanded. Ton of parenthetical phrases there. But what I do want to comment, because I think it reminds me of this wonderful cartoon that I had been shown of the one hand puppet talking to the other hand puppet. They're on these two hands, and the one hand puppet is saying to the other hand puppet, sometimes I don't believe there's a hand existing. And I think that is so typical of the fact that we assume that we simply have the knowledge. And this particular sentence makes it so clear that whatever understanding, whatever knowledge, whatever intelligence, etc., is essentially a gift given to us. Of course, it then becomes up to us to develop that gift, but the seeds of that intelligence are sown into us, and when we come into this world and as we develop in this world, and to keep that in mind, to have that deep sense of appreciation for whatever intelligence we have and our ability to acquire wisdom, and that's part of understanding a transcendent nature of the universe. In other words, when we talk about transcendence, we talk about something that precedes the immediate awareness that we have, and that is the assumption of such reality. So going on, Vayikra Moshe el Betzalel, Moses called to Betzalel, ve'el Oholiav, and to Oholiav, ve'el kol ish chacham lev, and to every wise-hearted person, man. Again, look at this. We repeat this parenthetical phrase, right? Look at how it's being emphasized, right? Asher Natan Hashem Chochmah Bilo, which the Lord had given wisdom to his heart. Kol asher nisa'o libo. And I wonder if this now, I think, is saying, but this is the part that we bring as human beings, right? Everyone whose heart had moved him, lekarva el hamelacha, to draw close to the service or to the work, right? Asotata, to prepare it, to fabricate it, to make it. I mean, I think that's why we have this highly literary way of expressing this fundamental idea. Do you want me to pause a second if there's a comment that somebody would like to make? Go ahead, please. Nothing? Nobody? Okay. All right. Okay. Vaykhu, let's find the place. Vaykhu milifnei Moshe kol truma, and they took from before Moses it kol hatruma, all the donations, asher heviu bnei Israel, which the children of Israel had brought, lemelechet avodat hakodesh, for the service, for the purpose of the holy work, la'asotata, in order to make it, to do it. Vehem hevu olav, and they brought before him od nedava baboker, another donation each morning. Every morning they bring another donation. Let me make sure I have, nope, still going on. Vayavo kol chachamim, and all the wise people, ha'osim et kol melechet hakodesh, who were to perform all the service of the tent, the work on the tent, on the holy work. Excuse me, the tent. Word tent is not in there, right? Who did all the holy work? Ish mimlachto asher hema asu. Each and every person from his particular act, his particular work or task, which they were tasked, which they were doing. So in other words, each had their own level of craft and expertise. Vayomru el Moshe lemor, and they told Moses, saying, Marbim haham lahavi, the people are bringing so much, midei ha'avodah lamelacha, more than we need for the work. Asher tzivah Hashem, which the Lord has commanded la'asotata, to do it. So here we go. Midei ha'avodah. So Rashi helps us understand this particular phrase, midei ha'avodah. More than what was needed is what he's saying, right? Yoter mikdei tzorech ha'avodah. More than the amount that the work required. So they had more of these materials than the work actually needed. People just kept bringing and bringing and bringing. And of course, this is in contrast, right, to the fact that they built the golden calf. We've learned this already, that this all happened after the Yom Kippur, following the building of the golden calf and the worship of the golden calf. This took place. And so here we have a change of heart and a deep desire to be able to perform this. And I think there's a lot that one might think about regarding that, regarding the fact that it needed to be something physical, that being able to contribute to something that people could see and touch and feel and, and experience in that kind of way, just is so important, and perhaps it's telling us how important this element of things are, as much as we'd like to emphasize the spirituality of it all. So let's find the place. Vayitzav Moshe. So Moses commanded, Vayaviru kol ban machaneh, and they passed this literally I'm translating this, and they caused a sound or a voice to pass through the camp. In other words, they passed word through the camp is how I think I might be able to translate it. Ish ve'isha, each and every man, al ya'asu od malacha l'truma takodesh. They should no longer make any service for the donation for the sacred donation. In other words, they no more need for these materials. Vayikle ha'am mehavi, and the people ceased from bringing. It's interesting, that there's this additional phrase here saying that they were cooperating, right? They didn't have the attitude of ain't no one gonna tell me what to do. So we might think, well, it's an easy thing, but regardless, when people want to do something, and I think that's the context that we're hearing here, is their tremendous desire to participate in this way and to be included and to feel a part of it. But when they were told to cease and desist, they did. They did. The idea is that there was a sense of deep cooperation going on here. Let's see if there's a rush. Yeah. Let's look at since that doesn't have any. Okay, give me a second. Can I recognize you? 1 second, a sec here. So vaYak'hel, the kamatz is kind of smudged here, right? And so it's a passive voice, right? And he says vaYak'hel lashon mini'ah. So vaYak'hel has to do with to prevent, something like that. They stopped, something stopping from happening. Ken, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was saying, you translated ish ve'isha as men,
No,
but it's really men and women, right?
Okay, I'd have to go back and listen to the recording, but I believe it. Yes, it certainly does mean
Ish ve'isha would be men and women.
Right, each and every man and woman.
Okay, but why did you just say men?
Okay, just that if I said it, then I wasn't thinking.
Okay.
I was concentrating on the fact that it involved everyone. That's what I was thinking about. So as I said, I'd have to go back and listen to the recording. There's no question, each and every man and woman. Ish v'isha. Okay, so thank you for paying attention. So, and feel free. And by the way, if you do want to say something, please press the button that raises your hand, and that way I will see it. Okay. V'hamalacha haita dayam, right? And with regards to this work or this preparation or the service, I've translated as, this bringing of these materials, haita dayam, it was enough for them, right? What do we mean for them? L'chol hamalacha la'asotota, for all the work to perform it, v'hotar, and it means and more than that. In other words, there were more raw materials than were needed to, in fact, accomplish the task. And Rashi is going to comment on that. Right, there's a lot of, right, sounds like a lot of redundancy going on there. So he tries to explain why. Okay, so he says, and the task of bringing the materials, haita dayam shel osei hamishkan. The them, he says, refers to the people who were actually involved in constructing the tabernacle. In other words, that it was sufficient for the people constructing the tabernacle, l'chol hamelacha shel mishkan, for the entire task of constructing the tabernacle, la'asot ota, in order to make it, ula hotar, and even more. They could have done more, the hotar, and he says this word, is it hotar or hutar? Just want to make sure, again, that I'm trying to pronounce it. So it's hotar, as I vaguely remembered it.
Mine says hoter.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yep, it does say the hoter. Forgive me, the hoter. Okay, thought I got it right and didn't. Okay, thank you. This is why it's so important doing it with other people. One reason, lots of them, but that's certainly one of them. Okay, so he points out this is sort of an unusual pointing of the word, right? And he gives other examples. He says, "Kamo in Shemot Chet, in Exodus chapter 8, it says, vaYak'hel et libo. It refers to Pharaoh. Okay, I'm going to guess that he had some relief from the particular plague, possibly. I'd have to go back and check it, but I tried to translate it because the Sepharia, I checked Sepharia on this as well, and a Sepharia wants to, I think, interpret it as sort of an imperative, but on the so Hachbeid, sort of, I try to understand it in this way, that he allowed his heart to be hardened. Let me double check and see if I can find the Sepharia comment quickly. Give me a second here, and I'll take a look. 1 second. Okay. Here we go. It says, this is what Sepharia says. They call it an infinitive, right? Not an imperative, but an infinitive. And they translate this as, but when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he allowed his heart to be hardened. That's how they translate it. And he goes on to the second example, vaYak'hel, with, he says, these are infinitives used in a perfect sense. So because he said infinitive, we know that the infinitive is stated in English grammar as a verb in the to. So to do is the infinitive form of a verb, right? So that's why I translated as allowed his heart to be hardened. In other words, he let his heart be hardened. And something, so again, I tried to understand it this way. Now I'm also obviously translating it in a passive sense. So again, but trying to utilize an infinitive in the past, right? Perfect, we know, means completed action, right? So was smitten, was hardened in that sense, and yet using an infinitive, an infinitive grammatical expression. So just my struggling to try and translate the Rashi and to translate the Hebrew in the way Rashi is translating it.
Well, mine doesn't say anything about infinitive, and I don't see how you could, maybe do it with hardening his heart if God hardened his heart. But what about slaying the Moabites?
So that sentence, if you look at, I went and looked up the whole sentence, and they actually say Hebrew hard to translate. They actually have a footnote there. But it seems to say, it has, in that sentence, they're talking about waging war against the Moabites. And it seems to be indicating that they really beat them, that it seems to be there to emphasize the degree to which the Moabites were defeated. So that's why, again, I struggle. This isn't the translation that's in my JPS translation. Again, it's my attempt to take into account what Sepharia is saying, and I think Sepharia is right. I think that this word hoter and hakot does have that sort of infinitive sense, and almost like a noun, right? So this
mine refers to gerunds. And gerunds are definitely used as a noun. So first of all, and mine translates the hoter as leave over. What that doesn't really, but then it says and he hardened his heart, literally, and hardening his heart. And then it says, and slew the Moabites, literally, and slaying the Moabites.
right.
So the gerund is definitely used as a noun. I'm not sure where the infinitive works into here.
Well, it's just, you're right. I mean, this is part of the issue of trying to translate one language into another language and getting into some subtleties of translation here that make it very difficult. Okay. So again, hardened and smitten, I believe, would be past participles. Okay. Is there some sort of sense in which they also act as nouns? So again, my attempt. Golda, I recognize you.
I was trying to get rid of the wavy thing, but it's not going away. I have the English translation in front of me, and it says to be done. So it's not only an infinitive, it's an infinitive in the future.
Mhm.
It's
Well, although done is a perfect form of the verb. Done means
right, but to be
I know.
So it's English. English is English, but
Struggling along. Okay.
yeah.
I don't see the word done.
Together, and that makes it a little more tolerant.
Mhm.
Lauren, did you want to say something?
I just don't see the words to be done, in that Rashi.
Oh, it's the translation of these particular words.
No, the English translation in my Tanakh, JPS.
Not Rashi in the script, you mean?
No. In the actual text.
Oh,
That's how JPS does it. And a lot of times JPS will take the Rashi stuff, and sometimes they
but
don't.
it does say to, like to do or something in the Rashi. It doesn't, in the script, but the Rashi wasn't commenting on that word.
No, he's commenting on the hoter, and the way I would like to translate it, the sense that I'm getting is, and there was more than enough. That's how I sense this hoter. I mean, the motar means more than, right? An abundance. It means an overabundance, right? The hoter, but this is a verbal form. Okay, and yet at the same time, so a gerund we know is a verbal noun, and at least that's what I understood. So an ing, a verb that ends in ing, doing, right, is a gerund, I think. So going back to my grade school years. Let's keep going. So now we get the fifth iteration, the construction of the component parts of the tabernacle. Vayasu kol chacham lev, Ba'osei hamalacha, and everyone who was wise-hearted in the construction of the tabernacle constructed the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Eser yeriot, 10 curtains. Shesh moshsar, of fine twisted linen, utchelet, blue, right? Argaman, purple, v'tola shani, and crimson yarns, kruvim, cherubim, maaseh choshev, the work of, this was skilled work, asa otam, they made them. And here's where I want to see if I can go to the new share. Let me see what I can do here. All right, let's see if this will work. This is what we're talking about. Let me make it a little smaller. And these are, they made Eser Yeriot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another 5, 5. Okay. So there we are. And a little bit of a detail here. So they made them 5 and 5, and then they joined them in the middle. So they sewed the 5 together, they sewed the other 5 together, and then they made lulaot, loops and buckles that they connected together. And this particular one is 11, and this is the goat hair. But this is the blue, purple, and crimson yarns that were twisted together, and these presumably are cherubim. And I was so glad to be able to do this for you, because I hadn't been able to really find great pictures. I do have some others, but there we are. I thought this was so cool, by the way. This is sort of the original zipper, or the principle of a zipper. Yeah. So this might be a good place to stop.
I think they're buttons.
Yes, right, or little buckles, actually, right? Let's stop the share. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stop right here and then pick this up, God willing, on Thursday.
Requiring